This is a core session, and for this session you just need either a half dome or a block, something that you can hold, and we're going to be taking it overhead when we lie down on the floor. So we're going to start standing. And this session is about finding some challenge in your core and seeing how stable it is, how strong it is, and how well it moves. So we're going to have a little play around, and I want you to find a wall. If you don't have a wall right now, you can just do this standing and perhaps try it with a wall later. Have your feet just a little bit away from the wall, and then get the back of your pelvis and the back of your rib cage onto the wall. It doesn't matter if your head won't reach, if your head is a little bit further forward, that's absolutely fine. And then keeping your rib cage and your pelvis against the wall, can you slide your rib cage side to side? So see if you can maintain that contact on the wall the whole time as you slide side to side. So hips stay still, and it's this movement, like a shift, that we're looking for. So have a little try with that and see how that feels. Now quite often we're looking for this shift movement of the rib cage. People will kind of side bend rather than doing that lateral or sideways shift. So have a little play with that first, and sometimes it helps if you take your arms out to the side even, like you're trying to reach from one side to the other, whilst keeping everything else super still. Okay, so we're trying to get some movement between our rib cage and our pelvis, so movement around our core, movement around our waist. So the next one we're going to try is a little side bend. So again, coming back to your wall, back of the pelvis anchored, back of the rib cage anchored, and then we're going to take it into a side bend, keeping your shoulder blades on the wall the whole time, and then coming back up. Try it on the other side. So shoulder blades stay in contact with the wall the whole time, and then come back up. Just do that on each side again, seeing how it feels, whether you lose contact at any point. And then we're going to challenge ourselves by taking the arms up overhead. So don't bring them all the way back to the wall, kind of just have them in front to begin with. And same thing, keeping everything anchored. Can you take it over into a side bend? Come back up, take it over to the other side. So it's really useful doing the side bends against the wall, because then you can make sure that you're in a true side bend and you're not adding any kind of rotation or any kind of leaning forwards. So like I say, if you don't have a wall right now, don't worry about it, but see if you can have a little go against a wall or a door or something later on. If you're finding that's okay, you can obviously bring those arms up overhead. I like to have my arms a little bit further apart, it gives space for my shoulders, but of course you can try it with those hands together as well, just for a little bit more of a challenge. Can you again keep shoulder blades and pelvis anchored as you do your little side bends there. Releasing the arms down, we're going to stay with the wall, and we're going to do some little arm overs. So bringing your arm up, arms up, and taking them overhead, and then bringing them back down. So again, you can just do this standing, and what you're watching for is to make sure that as the arms lift, that the rib cage doesn't go with them. So rib cage stays still, and if you're against the wall, again, we've got shoulders and pelvis anchored. Do a few here. See how far you can go before you lose that connection. And if you're not really sure and you can't really feel very much, it's quite handy to get like a pencil, something like that, and place it between your shoulder blades, press it into the wall, and then keep hold of it as you lift the arms up and down. If your rib cage is moving away from the wall, then that pencil's going to drop, isn't it, to the floor. How high can you bring those arms without losing that pencil, without losing that connection? Maybe you can come all the way to the wall, maybe not, it doesn't matter. It just gives you a really good idea of the range of mobility of your shoulders without the ribcage getting involved. Try it with just one arm this time. Maybe you can go further with one arm than you can with both. You can go nice and slow, just moving at your own pace. And then we're going to switch sides and try the other arm. Last one here. Really good. Okay, we're going to come down onto the floor now. So lie down on your back with your knees bent and your feet flat. So we're going to come down onto our back now, and just make sure that you've got your block or your half dome, whatever you're using, nearby. And then lie yourself down. So just take a moment here for your spine to settle into the floor. Let your chest and shoulders roll open. Back of your rib cage sink down into the floor and your pelvis anchored on the floor. So just like we did when we were standing up against the wall. Finding that really nice kind of neutral position here and then just taking some deep breaths here. And then we're going to take it over onto one side. So we're going to press into our feet, lift your hips up and shift them to your right just a couple of inches. Straighten out your left leg and bring your right leg into tabletop. Now we're going to roll over to bring this right knee all the way down onto the floor and your bottom arm can come around to cradle your head or you can grab a cushion or a block if you prefer. We're going to keep this right knee down on the floor. Left leg we're going to straighten out and push out through that heel so it's a really active leg. And then take that top arm, your right arm, up towards the sky. We're going to spread those fingers wide and take that arm overhead, bringing your thumb down towards the floor. And then taking it back up to the sky. So we're going to play with this move. If your thumb doesn't reach the floor, that doesn't matter. We're just taking it overhead and then bringing it back up. What I want you to be really mindful of here is whether these ribs are lifted. So you can bring that free arm around to hold onto your ribs to see whether when that arm goes overhead, whether the rib cage is lifting too. So keeping the ribs down and just taking that arm up and over. And then as your arm comes back up towards the sky this time, we're going to hold it there and we're going to add a twist now. So keeping your right knee down on the floor, you're going to start to roll your arm and your upper body back. And you can take that other arm out into a T, you can have your head cradled in your hand, whatever feels right for you. And we're going to reach that arm out to the side. Keeping that right knee down on the floor, so we've got a real big twist now through our waist. And we're just going to move that arm around behind us. So here we're just breaking up any tension around the shoulders, around the rib cage, we're getting that twist through the waist. So it's doing quite a lot of movement here, quite a lot of real good, deep, intense movements for all of our muscles, because when we're working on our core, everything's connected. And then as your arm comes back up towards the sky this time, we're going to just gently release that arm down and we're going to roll onto our back. Just bring your knees into your chest, give your knees a little hug before we do the same on the other side. So placing your feet back down on the floor again, lift up your hips and shift them to your left this time. Straighten out your right leg. Left leg comes to tabletop and we're going to roll over onto our right side this time, bringing that left knee down. Arm again, come around to cradle your head and that other arm is going to reach to the sky. Keep that other free leg out long, pushing out through your heels so that it's nice and active. And again, we're going to take that arm overhead, bringing your thumb towards the floor and then back up to the sky again. Remember, we don't want the rib cage moving, so you can bring that free arm around again to check what's happening with that rib cage and to make sure that it's staying nice and still. As your arm comes up towards the sky this time, hold it there. And again, let's start to open that arm out, twisting through your upper body, twisting through your waist, and then holding there. Knee stays down on the floor. And then again, let's start to move this arm around. Keeping the rib connection. And then when you're ready, slowly bring your arm back up, releasing down, and then just rolling onto your back again. Bring your knees into your chest, give your knees a little hug, and just rock gently side to side just to reset and release your back. And then we're going to roll over onto our front. So when you're ready, come in onto your front, and we're going to have our fists just in front of our shoulders. Pubic bone anchored into the floor, tailbone slightly tucked, and legs can be together or hip distance, whichever feels better for you. Now the first thing I want you to do here is to pick up your rib cage. So drawing your rib cage into your body, and we're going to push into our hands and we're going to lift our chest away from the floor. And then we're going to lower back down. Try that again. again. So drawing your ribs in first, so pull the ribs in first, press into your hands and lifting to come up and then lowering down. We're going to play with this a little bit. So I'm going to see if we can maybe come up a little bit higher and get our hips up off the floor. So we're going to keep our knees down. So when you're ready, drawing in your ribs first, press into your hands and lift to come up and then lowering down. You can make this movement as big or as small as you like, but what I want you to try and do is to come up in one solid piece. So rather than snaking up where your chest comes up, then your hips come up and you're kind of snaking up and down, see if you can do it all in one. So drawing the ribs into your body first, pressing into your hands and lifting, and then lowering back down. So coming up into a little plank. Keeping those ribs drawn in, so your upper back will look a little bit rounded. Do one more time like that. And then as you lower down this time, we're going to stay down and we're going to roll onto our back. Grab your block or your half dome. And take whatever you're holding up towards the ceiling. If you can, just hold it with a flat hand rather than gripping. And then let's have a soft elbow here. So a little tiny bend in your elbow and draw your elbows in towards each other. Again, connecting the back of your rib cage and the back of your pelvis down on the floor and keeping them in contact with the floor the whole time. Take those arms overhead towards the floor behind you and then bring the arms back up towards the sky. We're going to again play with this a few times. Let's coordinate this movement with our breath. So inhale as your arms go overhead and exhale as you come back up towards the sky. Keeping the ribs down, keeping the elbows drawing in towards each other. If you have a lot of tension through your shoulders, your elbows will want to flare out to the sides, and we're going to keep them drawn in. One more. And as your arms come up this time, you're just going to pop your half dome or your block down. I'm going to go over onto our front again. We're going to do the same thing again, and we're going to really try and come up in one solid unit and try to really find that connection with our abdominals. So, hands again just in front of your shoulders, pubic bone anchored, tailbone slightly tucked. Just gets you away from having that real compressed short lower back. So let's find that length in our lower back first. Draw your ribs into your body and then coming up to find that little plank position. Can you just pause for a moment and then lower down? Again, let's just play with this, getting that rib connection, getting those abdominals working. Let's do one more like this. And again, we're going to roll over onto our back and grab our block or our half dome again. This time we're going to have our legs out long. And the same thing, we're going to take the arms up towards the ceiling, elbows slightly bent, ribs down, pelvis anchored. Inhale, arms go overhead, and exhale to come back up. Have you noticed it feels the same? It's the same muscles we're using here to keep those ribs down as when we're lying on our front and we're pulling the ribs in to lift us. We're working those abdominal muscles. Let's do two more of these little log pullovers here. Last one. And then go over onto your front again. And we're going to see if we can come up a little bit higher onto our hands this time. If it already feels like enough work for you just coming up into that kneeling plank position, then stay there. But if you want to try and progress just a little bit more, again we're going to find tailbone slightly tucked, pubic bone anchored, drawing your ribs into your body so it's almost like you're curling into yourself before you even start, and then coming up into that kneeling plank position. Can you then come onto one hand and then onto the other hand? Let your hips drop down here. And then coming back down onto one elbow to elbow, and all the way back down. Let's play with this. Keeping the ribs drawn in, pressing to find that plank position. Maybe try starting with the other hand this time. Can you bring one hand down and then the other hand down? Let your hips relax. Keep your ribs drawn in and then coming back down. And all the way down. Let's do one more time. Ribs in, lift, finding your hand. Hips relaxed, ribs drawn in, and then coming back down. And all the way down. Over to your back again. So we're going to do a log pull over one more time. This time, if you've got something a little bit heavier, you can try adding a little bit more weight. If you're happy with your block or your half dome, then stick with that. Ideal for this if you happen to have a bolster, because they're not only a little bit more weighted, but also they're kind of a bit of an awkward shape, so it makes you work that little bit harder. Flat hands, and hands are about shoulder width apart, and you're keeping your hands flat. It's the same thing, soft elbow, elbows drawn in towards each other, ribs down, and you're taking those arms overhead and then bringing them back up towards the ceiling. So you might not go as far, but it's just adding a little bit more weight. And you can use anything that you've got with a little bit of weight. You can use hand weights. I just kind of like that the bolster's a little bit awkward. One more time. And then get rid of whatever you're using and come on up. We're going to go onto our knees this time. So come on up to find a high kneeling position. And then if we were to go from this kneeling position onto all fours, chances are you'll just kind of lean forwards and then just kind of drop onto your hands. And that doesn't really use our abdominals very much, and we want to try and find some work here. So find that high kneeling position again, drop your ribs, hinge from your hips, so I'm kind of sending my bottom back towards my heels, my abdominals are supporting so that I can come down with control. Try that again, so coming up. So keeping the ribs drawn in, hinging at your hip, work through your abdominals, and then you can bring your hands down to come onto all fours. Do that one more time. Ribs in, hinge, and then hands come down. Really nice. So we're going to stay on all fours here. And spread your fingers wide. Point your thumbs towards each other and get those elbow pits forwards. Shoulder blades are nice and wide on your back. Now if I was to say to you, lift one hand away from the floor, there's a couple of ways that you could get there. You could just bend your elbow. You could kind of reach your arm out in front, but what I want you to do is to twist through your waist so that you're twisting to lift one hand off the floor. Place it back down, do the other side. So we're twisting our torso to lift your hand away from the floor. Keep switching sides. It doesn't need to be a big twist. Let's do one more on each side. And then just coming off your hands. And let's just give our wrists a little twirl around, some little wrist circles in each direction. And then give them a good shake. So any kind of wrist work that we do, feel free to come off and give your hands a little bit of movement if they need it, if your wrist is starting to get a little bit niggly. And we're going to go back onto all fours again. This time we're going to lift a knee off the floor. And it's a little bit more tricky to find this one. We're going to do exactly the same. We're going to lift one side of the pelvis this time. So again, we're twisting through the waist to lift your knee off the floor. So one side of your pelvis is going to lift. So maybe if I come to the front, you might be able to see a little bit better here. And what you want to notice while you're doing this is your thigh staying vertical. So as you lift one side, you don't want to be shifting your weight so that this thigh kind of goes diagonal. I'll try and turn around and see whether that helps you to kind of see what we're doing here. So thighs are vertical, and then we're lifting one side of the pelvis, lifting the other side of the pelvis. Come on off your hands again, give your wrists a little shake. Let's do reverse prayer hands to give your wrists and hands a good stretch. Backs of the hands together, get your thumbs to touch. Pulling your thumbs away from the rest of your fingers and keeping your hands, backs of your hands together. Lowering your hands down. Hold here for a couple of breaths. And then just release, give your fingers a wriggle. Squeeze and release now. Hands, wrists, forearms, just give them a little bit of a tension. Squeeze and release. So, being on all fours and lifting one hand off the floor is giving us a bit of a twist through the waist, and then doing the same with the legs and is also giving us a twist through the waist. It's just a slightly different way that we find those movements. We're going to come back onto all fours now, and we're going to do our rhomboid push-ups. So find yourself back onto your hands and knees again, fingers spread wide, thumbs point towards each other, elbow pits are forwards. Let your shoulder blades squeeze together in your back and then press wide. Shoulder blades squeeze and press. Squeeze and press. Keep going here. So we know the rhomboid push-up, we know that it's about mobilising our shoulders. Let's see if we can do it on one side. So take one hand and wrap it around your rib cage, and then can you do that single arm rhomboid push-up, allowing your shoulder blade to move towards your spine and then pushing it away. Let's try that on the other side, so placing that hand down. Again, wrapping your arm around, and let's find that little rhomboid push-up here. One more time, and then coming off your hands. So coming up again, and just doing a little bit of movement for your wrists, for your hands here, whatever they need to do. Bringing one elbow in by your side, turning your palm up and using your other hand to pull those fingers back. Making sure that that stretch doesn't extend all the way to your wrist, so it's not just your fingers, we want some movement at the wrist as well. So pulling all the way back, and just hold there for a couple of breaths, reaching that thumb away, and then just gently pulling each finger in turn back. Give them a wriggle and do the same on the other side. Elbow tucks in, palm faces up. Using your other hand to pull those fingers back, and again getting that stretch all the way to your wrist and reach your thumb away. And then gently pulling each finger in turn back. Again, just to give everything a good stretch. Give it a wriggle again. Okay, so coming back onto your hands and knees again, and we're going to then find a kneeling plank position. Fingers spread wide. Thumbs point towards each other, elbow pits are forwards, and then just walking your knees back to find a plank position, and then allowing your hips to relax down. Shoulder blades are nice and wide here, and just hold for a couple of breaths. Notice the position of your ribs. Are you thrusting your ribs towards the floor? Can you draw those ribs into your body again? Immediately as you draw the ribs in, the rib cage and the pelvis are level with each other, and you should feel your abdominals kick in, switch on, and start to do a little bit of work. Can you keep this same position as you took one toe under or one foot under, and then tuck the other toe under to find your full plank position here? Hold for a couple of breaths. And then bring one knee in, bring the other knee in, and again, just come on off those wrists. Really nice. We're going to look at some side planks now. So coming to sit on one side, have your hand down on the floor, sitting on one hip, and then just let your body kind of just collapse down. Just let everything just kind of hang. And you can feel how horrible it feels for this shoulder. So we want to find some work through our core so that we're not having to outsource all of our body weight and all of the work just to our shoulder. So can you think about lifting this inside waist, so the bottom bit of the waist, can you kind of lift that waist away from the floor, and immediately as you switch the abdominals on, as you start to work your core, it's a lot less work for your shoulder. So kind of just find that a little bit, just collapsing and then drawing everything in. And then let's have a think about our arm position here. So we've got our hand down on the floor, And then think about your elbow pit. Can you roll your elbow pit in so it's facing towards your body, and then roll the elbow pit away? So we're doing a little bit of that internal and external rotation of that arm, because we want our arm to be in a really good position, a good position that's designed for holding weight and that's not creating collapse. So rolling that elbow pit away from you, our arm is in that external rotation. We're going to think about using our waist to lift us away from the floor, and we're going to come up into a little side plank here. So we're going to press into our knees, press into our hand, and lift our hips up away from the floor. And then with control, we're going to lower our hips back down to the floor. So we're going to play with this a little bit, and I kind of like to use the back of my mat to line up. So hand along the back edge of your mat, knees kind of along the back edge of your mat. Your hips are going to be behind you, and we're going to bring the hips through. So rolling that elbow pit away from you, pressing into your knees, coming up to find that side plank position. We're using the underside of this waist. Can you hold here for a moment? And then lower down with control. Keep that elbow pit rolled away. Use those abdominals and come all the way back down. Let's do that again. I'm going to keep my hand wrapped so that it's reminding me to lift this waist. Elbow pit turns away. Use the underside of the waist to lift, and then push to come up into that nice side plank position. Just hold for a breath, and then lower down nice and controlled. Let's just try that on the other side. So again, let's kind of play with that, just everything sagging, everything collapsing first, and then that lifting away. So again, you're just noticing how it feels into your neck, into your shoulder, and then how you can use your core, use your abdominals to lift away, and it takes so much pressure off your shoulder. Yeah. So once you're happy with that, we're then going to think again about that internal and external rotation of that arm in the shoulder socket. And we do want to be able to move. It is important that we can internally and externally rotate. We just don't want to be always in that internal rotation, that shoulder rolled forwards, because we spend so much time there anyway. Anything where we're kind of in this forwards position, we're already in that internal rotation. So we're going to roll that elbow pit away from us. We're going to press into that hand. We're going to lift this waist as you press into your knees to come up into that side plank position, and then lowering down with control. Again, you can use your mat to line up back edge, knees and hands. External rotation, lifting from your waist to come up to find that side plank position. Just hold in for a breath or two here. And then when you're ready, lowering down. Okay, let's add on to this a little bit. Let's go back to our first side. Again, hand and knees on the back edge of your mat. Hips are off, and we're going to bring our hips through. So it's important when we come up into a side plank to bring our hips forwards, to not kind of be all folded and pushing them back. Fingers spread, elbow pit forwards. Use the underside of your waist as you come up to find that plank position. Now, can you take this top arm and reach this top arm up towards the ceiling? Keep that arm in that external rotation. Keep using your waist to help you lift. How do we feel there? Lowering that hand back down, lowering your hips back down with control and coming off. Good job. Let's do that again and add on a little bit more with all of these exercises. If you come to the point where you think that's my limit, that's as much as I can do, feel free to practice that movement. Don't feel like you have to go on and on. Elbow pit forwards, using the underside of your waist. Lift, taking that arm up towards the sky. Now we're going to bring ourselves onto all fours. So we're going to take this top hand and we're going to start to bring that hand down towards the floor. We're going to lift our feet to come down onto our knees. We're going to see if we can roll the other way. So picking up the feet again, we're going to roll onto our other side. So this time, this hand is going to push into the floor. Let your feet come across, finding that side plank position on the other side. Elbow pit rolls away, using the underside of your waist to lift. And can you again reach your arm up towards the sky? Let's go back again. We're going to start to twist our body, bringing that hand down towards the floor, lifting your feet onto all fours and twitch to your other side. Let's have a little play with that. Can you go from one side to the other, nice and controlled, using your abdominals, using your core so that you aren't just collapsing and dropping into your shoulders every time. And then when you're ready, lowering that arm and coming all the way down. Really nice. We are going to play with that a little bit on the other side as well, just because it gives us more repetitions. I know we were twisting from one side to the other. Okay, so again, hand down on the back edge of the mat, elbow pit forwards. All right, knees pushing into the back edge of the mat. So let's find that lift through the underside of the waist to come on up, hips come through. Taking that top arm up towards the ceiling, we're just going to hold here for a breath first, and then we're just going to lower back down before we go on to all fours on this side. Are you ready? Elbow pit forwards, use the underside of your waist, come up to find that side plank. Arm goes up, we're going to start to twist our body, bringing that hand down towards the floor, lifting your feet to come onto your knees, picking up your feet to transition to the other side, finding that side plank again, arm lifts. When you're ready, twist again, bringing your hand down, picking up your feet and transition to the other side. Keep a check on your ribs, don't want to be arching the back, keeping those ribs in so that they're level with your pelvis. As you just practice a couple of times, and then when you come back to that first side again, lowering down with control to come all the way down. Ooh, our wrists definitely need a little stretch after that. So bringing your hands down to the floor, place your fingertips down on the floor. You can have them at the side or wherever works for you. Try and keep your fingers straight, but push your palms away from you. So the goal isn't to try and get your hand flat down, it's to create that stretch, but using the floor. Can you reach your thumbs away? Can you circle your thumbs? Can you reverse that circle and go the other way? Give your fingers a wriggle. Okay, we're going to go back and find that plank position again, a front plank, and then we're going to take that into a downward facing dog. Okay, so coming onto your hands and knees first, fingers spread wide, thumbs point towards each other, elbow pits are forwards. Once you're happy with those shoulder positions, we're going to take one leg back and tuck the toes under. Taking the second leg back, tuck your toes under, find that plank, and then plank your bottom up towards the sky to find that downward facing dog. And while we're here, we're going to pedal those feet, so just bending one knee at a time. To pedal your feet, eyes are looking down towards your toes. And then from here, we're going to find that plank again, so we're just going to roll our hips forwards to find that nice plank position. Ribs are drawn in, let your hips relax, and then bring one knee in, bring the other knee in, and come on off your wrists again. Little twirl for your wrists. Okay, so one last side plank exercise. We're going to do the transition from one side to the other that we just did, but this time if you want to, you can try it on your feet rather than just being on your knees. If being on your knees feels like it's enough work for you right now, then absolutely stay there. Let's get our setup right again. So if you're staying on your knees like we did before, hand and knees along the back edge of the mat. If you're coming onto your feet, then have your legs out long. And you want to make sure that your mat isn't slippy. If you're on a wooden floor like me, it might be a little bit slippy, so just be very aware that your mat might move. So we're going to have the top leg slightly in front of the bottom leg, gives you a little bit more support and stability. Elbow pit rolls away. We're going to use this underside of our waist, and we're going to come up into a full side plank, or on your knees if you prefer. Let's take that top arm up towards the ceiling and lift that waist. We're going to come onto our front now, so top hand is going to come down, we're going to twist. We're going to come onto our toes, so we're in a full plank here, and then we're going to go the other way. So again, we're going to twist, we're going to lift that arm up towards the ceiling to find your plank here. Can you go back the other way again? Twisting, bring your hand down, through that front plank position, and back over, onto your side, lifting that waist, elbow pits forwards, and coming all the way down. With control. How was that? Should we try that on the other side? So again, you can choose to stay on your knees, or you can do exactly the same in that full plank position. My shoulder on my right side is not very happy today. I'm going to stay on my knees for this one, but you feel free to come onto your feet. And I'll talk you through it again. Hand on the back edge. Knees on the back edge or legs out long. If you're in that full plank, top leg in front of bottom leg. Elbow pit forwards, using your core to lift that waist and coming up to find that side plank position. And taking that arm up towards the ceiling, we're going to come over onto our front now. So this top arm is going to start to come down, we're going to twist. You're going to bring yourself through centre, so you're either in a kneeling plank or you're in that full plank. And then we're going to twist to the other side, bringing that arm up, find your plank. Are you ready? Let's go back the other way, twisting. Hand comes down, finding that full plank position. And then when you're ready, coming back to find your start position, elbow pit still forwards, and then coming down nice and controlled all the way down. Really good job. Onto your back now for a crescent stretch. So lie yourself all the way down. It's a relief to get all the way down, isn't it? So we're going to take our hands overhead, legs out long, and we're going to reach from our fingertips to our toes, making ourselves as long as we possibly can. And then we're going to walk our legs to one side. So walking your legs to one side. And then walk your arms and upper body to the same side. So you're in a crescent or banana shape. Check in with the ribs here. So this is a really tempting position to arch your back and flare your ribs. And you can always pop something under your head to help these ribs to relax down. Choosing to either stay here or picking up your outside leg, cross it over the inside leg. And then if you want to, you can grab your outside arm with that inside arm. So if you think about the longer side of your body being the outside and the shorter side being the inside. Hold for a couple of breaths here. Taking those deep breaths, so we do want to feel that rib cage movement, but we want to feel the rib cage moving side to side and front to back. We don't want to be arching our back and lifting the ribs. So we still want the ribs level with the pelvis. And this gives a really nice stretch all through our waist, the muscles of our waist. When you're ready, let's release the hands first. Just takes a little bit of pressure off our shoulders. And we're going to do the same on the other side. So uncrossing your legs, walk your legs back in through centre and then walk them over to the other side this time. Take your arms up and overhead and walk your arms and upper body also to the same side your legs have gone at. So we're in that crescent or that banana shape here. You can choose to stay here, or again picking up the outside leg, cross it over the inside, and with that inside arm you can grab that outside arm and give it a little pull. Increasing the length and the space down the outside of your body. Hold there, take a few breaths, check in with the ribs, and remember if you need to pop something under your rib cage, please do. Pop it under your shoulders. You can pop it under your head, your shoulders all the way down to kind of your shoulder blades to help things drop down. However much bolstering you need to try and find that position where your rib cage and pelvis are level. Taking some deep breaths here. And then when you're ready, release your arms first. Walk your legs back in through centre, bending your knees in one at a time, and then bring your knees into your chest. Give your knees a little hug and just rock gently side to side. When you're ready, just come on up to seated. Just taking a moment when you get back up to just give your shoulders a little roll, just turning your head side to side, just making sure that you're not creating tension, you're not holding a lot of tension. I'd like you to be all relaxed at the end of the session and ready to face whatever it is you've got planned for the rest of your day. Thank you.